the platforms. Good. And we are live. So video is live.
Awesome. So
And team is floating into space. Okay, cool.
that's
Hi
nice.
everybody. And hello everyone who
Hello.
joined us via any streaming platform. So hopefully we will have some questions to answer.
Yeah.
Supriya, you
So
want to
what?
start? You are our moderator, so go nuts.
Okay, cool. So hello everyone. I'm Supriya. I'm the CDO and co-founder of Switcheroo. And we have our wonderful panel that consists of Tom, Tim, and Kiran. And I'll let these guys to kick off by introducing themselves.
Go Tim.
Tom
Is-
first.
Oh, me
My name is
first.
Tim Salau, aka Mr. Future of Work, as well as the CEO of Guide, which is a life skills training app for high school students to learn essential life skills from their favorite content creators. I have been talking about future of work for years now, and it's
Uh-huh.
really awesome to have it now in the presence, especially with the rise of remote work. And aside from that, I really, really love my favorite things, like a funny interest of mine, is reading. I'm big on Audible. I love listening to Audible audiobooks. So if you love Audible, let me know.
Well done.
Great.
Who loves reading?
Actually,
Follow
I'm gonna
Tim.
take you up on that.
Okay, Tom, you're next.
Okay, so my name is Tom Kozacinski. I am, I consider myself to be a professional freelancer. I've been talking like Tim about future work and remote work for years now. I'm a strong advocate of remote working, and for a period of time, I was traveling a lot while working. Uh, I've been as a professional, I do product design, and on the side I do stand-up comedy as well, and I've been doing a lot of talks and workshops in conferences in the past 6 years or so. So hopefully now that we are in a position where we can use our experience to share with people that are not experienced as we are, and we can help them uh, kind of through this situation of transitioning their companies into remote work.
Really appreciate that, Tom. And now it's Kiran, the
Hi,
young
I'm
and
Kiran.
dynamic.
Thank you. So I have spent my entire career remote. So essentially what I am is a blockchain, decentralized fintech developer consultant. So a lot of my work is about basically taking like a brand new financial ecosystem, decentralized finance, and trying to apply that to the real world in really useful ways, right? And I've been working with tons of like workers. Like I have a general legal counsel, he's in Toronto providing me legal advice. I have tons of people I speak to ad hoc, entirely remote. And so like I feel like this is quite a natural like working style for me. And when this
Mhm.
corona stuff happened, like largely like I was largely unaffected. My mom was like, Kieran, like, like I'm so angry with you because like nothing's changed, you're doing everything the exact same. And I feel like this is a really productive way of working and I'd love to
Mhm.
spread it to other people.
Yeah, awesome. So let's get kicked off with the whole how to transition your business into remote. So let's discuss what your current remote stack is. Who wants to answer first? Who wants to
I'll go
discuss
first.
their remote
I'll go first.
stack?
So within Guide, our current remote stack is Slack, a tool
Mhm.
called Tandem, and Google Drive. And we're a startup, so we're keeping things really, really simple.
Mhm.
And we use Slack to communicate and collaborate, of course. We use Tandem for kind of virtual, off the cuff meetings, so we can work with each other as well as kind of check in on each other. So Tandem
Mhm.
is a really great enterprise SaaS tool for that. And then Google Drive is where we collect all of our information, such as documents, as well as anything related to planning.
Mhm.
And I would also add really interesting tool called Loom that we use.
Mhm.
And we use Loom so we're able to really quickly send video snapshots of ideas or brainstorms or maybe critiques of projects that we're working on. So we are a completely distributed team of 5. And, we have 2 people supporting us with marketing part-time. One of them is living in Germany and one of them is living in Seattle. And then we have two co-founders, similar to I'm one of the co-founders of Guide, and one of them is living in Seattle, and the other one is living in Austin. So we've been fully remote for since inception. So it's just the way we work. So we use all of these different tools to just make sure that we still stay tethered to each other. So that's our remote stack.
Kiran, go.
Okay, so like I largely agree with what Tim said, right? So like Slack and Google Drive, I think these are like the basis of a lot of remote stacks. I mean, we used to use Google Hangouts for video chats, but the one thing I realized is that the latency was a huge issue. So like we've moved to Whereby, and I know Tom, you use that as well for your like consulting calls. And I mean, one point is like this is really funny. I have a funny story. So the latency, which is like the delay in Google Hangouts for us, was so bad that when I finally saw my co-founder who's in Canada after like 5 months of remote working, we used to have like a delay between him saying something in real life and then me like picking up on it and then going like responding back. And I mean like, so yeah, we're using Whereby now because the latency is much lower. Like I feel like that's a really important tool. It's not really so much what tools you use, it's just like to make sure that you maximize the quality of the communication. I think Slack's quite good, but also like WhatsApp is a really like versatile tool, and it's quite good because people are more likely to respond to WhatsApp on the go. In terms of, I'd say Google Drive is still the best. I know people used to use Dropbox from before, and my father's company used to use Dropbox, but I'd say Google Drive is probably the best for cloud.
Yeah.
And you, Tom?
I will not speak about Slack and Whereby and Zoom because I think everybody knows about that. I just want to add to Google Drive because 2 years ago my personal laptop was stolen, and I had everything synced to my Google Drive because I use Mac as my laptop, and then I use a PC as a desktop computer. So everything was synced across Google Drive. So when I lost my Mac, everything was synced, so I could just pick it up where I left off. And once I got a new Mac logged in, everything was working. And for Kiran, you mentioned Dropbox. I'm sure that not a lot of people know about product by Dropbox called Paper. It's Paper by Dropbox. It's basically a document creation tool where basically you can drop in a lot of stuff. It's much more lightweight than Google Docs, and it has some nice things that you can add, like you can add in timelines or stuff like that, and it's like interactive with multiple people. You can tag people within the document, and then you can collaborate on a single timeline. It's kind of it's proven to be very good to collaborate on some quick ideas. And then if you want to expand a little bit, you can use something like Miro board or Mural, where basically you get an endless white space, and then you can just build on top of that, and then you can post in it, or just do like a wireframe or stuff like that. So if somebody needs like a more of a white space, open, plain creative tool, I would advise Mural. That's it. Who's next?
So next is, what's your favorite tool that you use for your remote stack? You might have emphasized it, but I need more to come. Out of all the tools that you use.
Go, Tim. Let's do the same. Let's do the same order so we can.
Yeah.
I mean, my favorite tool would probably be Slack.
Something.
It's and I think I don't only just use Slack to communicate, but I also use Slack to jot down my own personal notes or things I find online that I want to reference again. So it's actually almost like a personal utility as well as a team collaborative utility. So so Slack's number one, but I think a close number two is Tandem. And Tandem, I think once again, it's if you really want to really quickly do synchronous collaboration with your team, you can have a virtual office in Tandem that allows you to, let your team know what app you're working on, what you're working on, and they can easily chime in. And it's, I think one of the startup is in Silicon Valley, but it's a really, really interesting tool that I think has gotten a lot of usage due to COVID-19. So I think that's a close number one with Slack.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. Now I'm gonna make it tough for you guys. You have to choose just one. Tom.
Just one tool.
Yeah, one favorite tool
Well,
of yours and why.
yeah. So I'm using like I'm not gonna mention Slack, but for me the my tool that I use the most, and I just got my report for my screen time. It's actually WhatsApp, and it's just weird because everybody's on there, and I realized that I think my time on WhatsApp doubled in the last month. So it's just because I can share in files and everything, and everybody's there. And if somebody needs something, I can just tap a call button and it's there. There's no need like, oh, go to this link, go to that link. It just kind of works, and then whatever we need, we take it from there, and then we go to somewhere else.
Awesome. Kiran.
I'd say, I mean, I was actually going to say WhatsApp. I'd say a really underrated tool would probably be Discord. So, I mean, like, I was having a conversation with a lot of people. I was like, you know, you should adopt Discord. Somebody's like, I really wanted my team to adopt Discord, but it's for gaming. So they adopted Microsoft Teams, but Microsoft Teams, like, sucks. And, like, one thing I've noticed, especially as a developer, like, a lot of developer ecosystems for support, announcing new features, they're all through Discord. Right, it's really amazing. So if I want to talk to somebody from another company who I've never spoken to before, I can just search them up. I can DM them just like WhatsApp one-on-one. If I want to have like a big team discussion, it's really easy to find like a particular company's Discord. And for that kind of collaboration, I say Discord is a really underrated tool.
One thing that is really good, about Discord is actually different to Slack. Discord has like live audio channels where people can just kind of join in, and then they're automatically on the call with everybody in the same room. So it functions like a chat room, but basically audio. And it's a great thing for companies that have a lot of people who never work remotely, and they kind of miss that feeling of talking to somebody who's sitting next to them, usually in the office, or hanging out with somebody in the kitchen. You can just go into a casual audio room where you can see somebody's hanging out, and then you can just talk a little bit more relaxed and have that same familiar feeling of being around your coworkers, where you're actually just talking to each other, not related to work. And it's a really great tool to actually keep the same feeling that you are all in this together.
Absolutely, it's amazing. And like if you go to this Discord website right now, like you can find like I think like templates that help you like set up like what kind of business that you have. It's really amazing.
Oh wow, awesome. So the next question that I had for you guys was the cool way to get employees involved in more informal company culture while you're working remotely? Tim.
I'll let Tom go first.
Okay.
Okay.
So regarding the tools like I said, Discord is a really good tool where you can have this like water cooler rooms where people can call out. And with one of my previous companies, we had a room on Slack, the channel called Fuck Ups channel, where basically it was a place where you can come in and own up to if you screwed something up. And the idea was that everybody shares if they messed up something this week or this month, and then you can vote on who did the biggest mess, and then that people gets rewarded. So basically we were rewarding you stepping up and owning your mistakes, because everybody makes mistakes. It's kind of in human nature that people kind of say like try to hide it. So we kind of like put it out in the open, and it was hard to start out because nobody wants to be the first that shares. So my co-founder and me, we started first like, oh, this is what we screwed up, this is what we did. And the idea was that whoever gets most votes will get like a 1 day off extra at the end of the month or whatever, or like a lunch for them and their partner. We had something. So I said like, if I'm the only one doing this, I'm basically buying my own lunch just on the company's money. So people are kind of okay, I want to join in. So this was one of the great approaches to kind of keep things more informal and kind of have fun around how people work.
I like that idea. I really like that. Kiran.
Okay, so like one thing that I've noticed a lot of firms are doing, so I have an example. So one of my friends, he's working for a fintech firm, like they're usually based in like the Shoreditch area, but like so they can't have their Friday evening drinks, right? So normally like a lot of firms, you go to the pub, you talk with your coworkers, they can't do that. So they're getting on Zoom and they're doing virtual like drinks, right? And that's a good way to kind of like relax with your workers, right? And like chill, right? And you can have like a friendly conversation. You're kind of like at home. But like the
Mhm.
problem is, it's Zoom, right? It feels like a work tool, and so
Mhm.
like one thing that I'd suggest is like I'm not sure if anyone's done this, but maybe house party, like with
Okay.
your coworkers. Because I think what house party is if you want to relax and get to know somebody, house party has games built in. It's for your phone. You can sit back and like lie down and play the games, and you can talk to people in a very casual environment. So I feel like maybe
Mhm.
that would be like a much better tool to, I don't know, get to know like your coworkers like better and be able to trust them, as opposed to
Mhm.
maybe using Zoom.
Yeah. But I guess in light of the recent privacy
No,
concerns,
it's actually BS. Like I looked it up.
yeah.
It's actually
Okay.
yeah, it's actually a hoax. I think it is at least.
Okay, cool. Cool, cool, cool. Tim, now you.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've done within Guide, I think it's really interesting, is we have actually a Slack channel dedicated to what you're learning. So that's one way to kind of like build an inclusive team culture, using tools. So like everyone in that channel, if you're learning something, like recently the other day, I was learning about kind of, how to manage yourself when maybe you have too much that's going on.
Mhm.
So we kind of post things in that daily learning Slack channel just to showcase what are people learning, right? And similar to what Tom said, if you're failing too, that's something that you're learning. So we use that
Mhm.
channel to document it. Another thing that I used to do, just because sometimes when you're working remotely, it's really
Mhm.
hard to, I guess, uh, feel presence. I used to post videos, kind of like inspirational videos in our Slack channel, and that was something that I just did to keep culture. Another thing that I've learned that organizations do is
Mhm.
they actually have virtual happy hours, like every Friday,
Oh,
as
wow.
well, or virtual meditation
Mhm.
hours or something like that. So I think you can
Cool.
still like look to use like Zoom or any video-based tool that you're using within your remote
Mhm.
stack to have those types of virtual hangouts, so people feel as if they feel a sense of presence and they're not just always heads down in Slack or in their app of choice working.
Awesome. So, can you guys highlight the biggest challenges that you've had while working remotely, and how did you mitigate it?
Oh, that's a
Tom, you
very
want to
good.
go first,
Yeah,
or
I can
Tim?
go first. So my biggest challenge when I started out was communicating with clients that usually you would see in person, and it took me a while to realize that clients, when they hire a remote worker, they want to be assured that whoever is working on their product or their problem or whatever is actually working on it. So when I
Mhm.
started out, it was just kind of okay, now I'm working on this, and then I would stop communicating with my client. I would just be working, and then after a week
Mhm.
or two, I was like done, and it kind of created this feeling where client would be like, how do I know that you're actually working? People kind of want to know that
Mhm.
you're working. Same thing goes for managers who are first time managing people remotely. How do I know that you're actually working? And they cannot obviously hang over your shoulder. So one thing that I did to mitigate that, and it was advised by a friend of mine who's, I think,
Mhm.
actually among the attendees. Yes, he is. He is here, Tomislav Kozacinski. Hello, Tom. I'm another Tom. I'm so happy that he actually joined. He actually
Oh,
gave me a
wow.
great advice about that, where basically you communicate at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, what you're doing, how you're doing. Like it's a 5 minute stand up, but for your client and for somebody who needs to be privy to your work, but it's outside of your team. And then you kind of do a check in and check out email in the morning and afternoon, or whenever you start and end working. And then kind of people are just assured that okay, you're on top of the things, and if they see something going kind of off the rails, they can intervene. So this was the biggest issue was communication, and then kind of working on that.
Awesome. Tom? Oh, sorry, Tim.
I would have to say for me, it's
Mhm.
been I think as a team leader, it's been kind of like uh, psychological safety, really
Mhm.
fostering that. And I think when you have a remote culture, it's easy for people to feel isolated and alone. So one of the things I
Yeah.
often do is I'm actively having one-on-ones with the people who are supporting us part time, which is one of them is a part of Remote Heroes. Shout out to Jonathan's son. And also one of my other friends, her name is Chanel. She works in Germany. So I think as a leader, you're going to struggle with how do you keep people connected to whatever it is you're building, but also how do you continue to empathize in a remote environment? It's really hard, and the best way to do that is to be very intentional, having one-on-ones. And I mean, same thing with my co-founders. We're talking every single day, and at the same time, even due to COVID-19, there have been bouts of struggle due to the fact that COVID-19 has caused everyone to reflect on what's important, such as family, your values, and really we've been kind of building this company and we've been bootstrapping for so long. One of my co-founders, he didn't even have a full-time job. So now he has to kind of reevaluate all of that, but I have to be there to support him without being there physically. Right. So I think you having to, so psychological safety is a huge challenge because it's not, it's different in a virtual remote work environment. It's different because it's to a degree, it feels as if it doesn't exist. Right. But the best way to make it feel as if it exists is if you're leading a team of 2, 3, or 7, you have to be proactive in checking in on people and scheduling time to talk more about just work, right? Talk about family, talk about what people are doing outside of work.
One thing that we have been, discussing offline, I think it's worth mentioning. A lot of people who have just started working remote for the first time in their life and don't have actually a lot of experience, they feel that they need to be productive for full 8 hours a day in their workday, and then they start at 9 and they have to finish at 5. And people who are at home, there's a lot of distractions, and some people now, especially with the COVID-19 going on, people are home with kids. So I think that people are internalizing this pressure that's basically not real, that they need to be productive full 8 hours a day. And everybody knows that no one is productive for 8 hours when they're in the office. And now that they're at home, they don't have these distractions they have in office, so they feel they need to be more productive, which is just not true. And this morning I spoke with a friend of mine who's a manager in a big company, and he said that from his perspective, it's normal that people are not productive for 8 hours, but they do not feel that he knows that, and that he does not expect from them to be productive 8 hours a day. And this is where people kind of go in the mode where even if they are on a call with their colleague, they don't want to talk about personal stuff or fun stuff, because then they feel they are stealing from company's time, and it creates additional pressure for no reason, basically. And I think the managers should be more open with their people and just say yes, hop on a call with somebody one-on-one, take a 15-minute break, ask them about their day, how they're doing, whatever, just like the normal conversation you would have in a hallway or in a kitchen or whatever you're doing in the office. And people kind of, when they are isolated for a long time, they kind of forget that this is a normal part of a working day, and they just skip it, and then the frustration grows.
You've touched a very valid point, Tom, right there. It was supposed to be your next question anyway. Kiran, do you have something to add on?
I mean, obviously I'll answer the question from this round, but I was going to say, I've been very fortunate because the people that I know, the people that I work with, I've been very close from university. People that I met at house parties, I've turned into my business partners. So for me, that pressure about being able to talk about personal things has been a completely different thing. But for me, one thing which is still, I mean, was a really big issue is remote working etiquette, especially when you're collaborating on documents. So let's say you're on Google Drive, or you're working on a project together and you're basically collaborating on documents. If you're in person and so-and-so makes an edit, they're right next to you, and you can be like, okay, so what are you doing with that edit? Why are you doing it? But if, let's say, you're in a different time zone, or so-and-so is doing something with their kid, hypothetically, for, let's say, a company, and you're doing something and you're not paying attention, and someone's basically deleted your edit, and then you're like, why do you do that, man? Why are you stepping on my toes? And it's a huge issue. So I feel when you're remote working, things like commenting on other people, giving them constructive feedback, being very deliberate when you communicate, these things are really important. And it's not so much that we don't know how to do it, it's that we don't pay enough attention. And then you have to develop that skill over time when you're working remotely. It's a new skill that you need to get.
So sometimes it happens on WhatsApp, we have a group chat, and by the time I'm on my mobile, there's there are like 100 messages, and I'm not able to skim through all those messages. So I have to go to somebody and ask, like, hey, what did just happen? What did I miss?
Exactly,
So
100%.
things like that do happen. So coming on to the next question, what's your opinion on the remote working courses that have recently popped up and like have been everywhere? You can see them like almost everywhere.
Oh, really?
What do you think about them?
Tim, you gonna go first?
Yeah.
Well, I think people who are creating courses around remote work, I think that's okay. I mean, I'm sure there's YouTube videos around it. I think that whoever the course is from, be mindful of their expertise. But it
Mhm.
makes sense though, right? I think because now most organizations are remote companies, that there's
Mhm.
people who want to capitalize and educate around that.
Yeah.
But I think the best way to embrace a remote culture isn't to start with a course. It's more so to define, what your team wants that culture to be like. So
Mhm.
it's more so to, if you're leading a team, if you're a leader of an organization, ask everyone, one, how are they feeling about being
Mhm.
remote? What are some things you guys can constructively do? Because some courses are not those courses won't solve the problem for your specific culture. And
Mhm.
remote work isn't one size fits all, because at the end of the day, there's going to be certain cultural nuances that you're going to have to add to make your remote work culture special and make sure
Mhm.
everyone feels if they belong. So,
Yeah.
I would take those courses with a grain of salt, but really start with who are the people on my team? What do they want? What's our culture? And how can we define it first before I reference
Mhm.
courses?
Awesome. Tom.
Yeah. Well, I agree with them. One of the
Mhm.
reasons why I started doing the remote heroes was because over the course of one weekend, when lockdown hit, we had over 250,000 remote experts on LinkedIn more over a weekend. Suddenly, everybody's an expert. So one of the reasons why we are doing this is to warn people off from people trying to make a quick cash. There are always people who are
Mhm.
trying to capitalize on the situation, and that's a valid business. But there are a lot of resources that are free,
Mhm.
and if you can get access to those and you know how to find them, then you can educate yourself and then see if the course is actually for you, like Tim said.
Mhm.
But from like, I don't want to be tooting my own horn, but I would advise people to try to find somebody who
Mhm.
actually has experience and can help you and your organization specifically. And then, because some people say like, oh, you need a virtual team building, go watch a movie together. Like, no, everybody watches different things. It's like
Mhm.
right, so it doesn't work. So if you don't have
Yeah.
a movie culture in a company, then it's just like it's a dumb suggestion. Same thing
Mhm.
was if you have a company that nobody likes outdoors, then you wouldn't take them hiking. So there
Mhm.
are things that need to be tailored to your culture, like Tim said, and
Definitely.
I think that there are people who have experience. Years of experience that can help out, and I would turn to
Mhm.
those people sooner than I would turn to like a random course that somebody built in a day. So like I
Mhm.
really doubt in a quality of courses that just popped up in the span of a couple of days. So I would be
Mhm.
really careful of those.
Kiran, do you have any opinion on
I
this?
mean, like, I feel the best way to get it right is to like trial and error. Like, I feel
Mhm.
like you won't know what's best for your company until you actually try and do it yourself. Like,
Mhm.
it's like the same with coding, right? You wouldn't
Yeah.
learn how to code by like looking up programming languages on Wikipedia, right?
Mhm.
So like basically I'd say trial and error, and especially if your entire company has no remote working experience, maybe as a manager kind of just explain to like your employees the situation, tell them to be patient,
Mhm.
right? They're going to do it properly, and basically don't do what everyone else is doing just for the sake of it. Like maybe do
Mhm.
a bit of research, trial and error. Like I don't know, Discord might be right for you. Maybe you'd end up using Microsoft Teams because
Mhm.
you like the fact that Microsoft provides a lot of training content. But like
Yeah.
whatever decision you make, it does have to be right for your company, and there is no trial and error. If you do something and it
Mhm.
turns out that nobody likes what you're doing,
Yeah.
you don't need to be like, no, we've made the decision, we have to stick by it. You can
Mhm.
you can kind of like you can try and get it right.
One thing that could really help out in this situation is something that I use in design a lot, and I call it test early and often. So just put it out there, see if it works, get a lot of feedback from your coworkers, especially if it's a small company, then everybody can chip in. Oh, this worked, it didn't work. What can we try next? And just kind of help, basically just facilitate so people can build their own culture within the company.
So looking at the current situation, a lot of companies, they are struggling with their cash flow. They have to furlough people. And then with the kind of environment that we are in, what's your opinion on having a hero or a consultant to help you with building your remote culture or your remote stack? What would be your view? We know that Tom is a bit inclined towards that. I would like Tim to begin with this.
Yeah, I think having an on-site expert is key. I think for our team, I am that expert, and I think one thing that I often tell people is that you're always adapting culture, and we're really small right now. So like, it's funny because I'm just the type of person where I really truly do invest in culture because I invest in people. But having someone on site who's especially during this time looking at your culture, and because most organizations have pivoted to always having people coming to work and making sure that they have their lunch properly at 12. Now they do need, I think, an objective perspective on where does your organization go from here. So having a remote hero would help, right? And it would probably help if they're remote as well, right? It'll make sense as no one can gather in the same space. But yeah, I think it's definitely good to have an on-site consultant. And I think specifically, though, it's more important to ensure that consultant is addressing all of the teams within your organization, especially if you're a really huge enterprise, or even if you're a mid to large business. They need to really understand your culture. So I'm all for having an on-site consultant. I don't think that's a bad idea at all.
Yeah, there are organizations that actually have. I have a friend of mine who told me that he works for a company as a marketing consultant, doesn't matter, but they told him that they hired a person to teach everybody in company how to use Slack. So they actually hired a full-time person. So this is like a little bit of a older organization, but there are people who are 45 plus that are now finding themselves that they need to use a lot of these tools that are fairly familiar to them. And like coming from our perspective, like, oh, it's another messaging system. It's just the same thing that we've seen over and over again. But for somebody who's using anything like this for first time, there's so many options that they don't know even how to navigate or what to do or what's going on and why. So, and yes, it can make sense to have somebody present to teach them one tool, but if they can find a person that will be evangelist of remote working for their company, and then basically having like somebody when you have a Scrum Master trainer in the company who teaches everybody Scrum principles, we can have something similar for somebody who's the same thing for remote work, and then just talks with everybody and basically gets everybody on the same tracks.
Oh, that's nice.
I mean, like, the way I think of it is, imagine you're an entrepreneur, you just raised your seed round, you've got 6-10 employees about to move into a beautiful office. It's your job to like flipping build the building, lay the carpet, lay the cables, like do the plumbing. No, your job is to make money as a startup, right? And like basically in the same way that your office space is your means of doing work, like the remote working tools, the setup you have, the way you communicate, that's how you power a business in a remote platform. And your job should be to basically basically be the business, make money, serve your clients, make sure your employees are like productive, not to like worry about how to do like all this stuff, right? Especially during this crisis where like there is no time, and like these things, like you want to get them right, they do take time and a lot of effort. But it's a very tough situation because at the same time there is no time. People are being furloughed, cash flow is terrible. It's actually a lot more effective to have someone who knows what they're doing, basically hold your hand and basically guide you through the process. That's how I feel about it.
So I get your point. It's basically do what you love, do what you're good at, and get a guy who knows basically how to work remotely and understands your culture and knows what tools are going to be best for you and suggest that to you, or either set it up for you, right?
Exactly. Like you're a businessman, you're a developer, you're not a plumber,
Mhm.
you're not literally those things.
Awesome. So coming on to the next question then, what are the biggest myths of remote working that are not true? I mean, myths are not supposed to be true anyway.
Tim, you want to take this one first?
I
Yeah.
I was actually thinking as soon as you said that,
Mhm.
Supriya, one of the myths to remote working that are not true is that you work less.
Mm.
That's actually not true, right? What even researchers found now, and what organizations are seeing now, is that when people are working remotely, they actually work more, and that's because like their boundaries are messed up, right? They don't know how to kind of create boundaries within their home psychologically. So
Mhm.
organizations are realizing, wait, we're saving money, and our people are working more when they're working from home. Which
Mhm.
obviously, there's some organizations who can take advantage of that. But
Mhm.
I think the myth has always been, oh, if I work remotely, or if this organization lets me work remotely, it's going to allow me to work less hours, right? I think that's something that you have to be mindful of in terms of being able to siphon when you're working and when you're not. And
Mm.
organizations have to be mindful of that as well, because you definitely don't want your people being overproductive. One, because that
Mhm.
speaks to the fact that you rather just like take as much, productivity from them, and that doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily mean that they're working on the right things too. So overproduction doesn't necessarily mean efficiency, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge myth that we often kind of see a lot in the remote working world, and when it comes to remote work. And when the reality is that you don't work less, you work more. But
Mhm.
as an organization, and if you're building a remote team, you have to be able to have like really clear hours of operations on when you want people to work, and when you want people to also take care of yourselves and all the other things that you're doing to
Mm.
foster more sustainability in the culture.
I totally resonate with you on that, because that was my biggest challenge when I started working remotely. I didn't had a kind of clear demarcation between the times when I'm working and when I'm not working. It,
Yeah.
it felt like I'm always working. I'm dreaming of work. So even my dreams were invaded by work.
Yeah.
So I had to set a boundary.
Yeah.
Tom, do you want to add
Yeah,
on?
it happens, especially when people just start out. They don't know where the work begins and where they start. And the thing is, we in the last couple of years there was a lot of talk around work-life balance and how do you balance out your work with your life. And then us who have been working from home and remotely for the span of our careers, I've been using a different term that I heard from. I think it was Tony Robbins, but not sure. But it's a thing called work-life integration, because I wake up as a designer and a company owner, and I go to sleep as that person. So I need to it's basically integrate in my life. So I need to know how I can rearrange my life schedule where when I'm working and when I'm not working, but not just when you actually step away from computer. You need to know how to block that out in your head and dedicate your focus to something else. And it was hard at some point where you are just kind of, when you're not working, you're feeling that you're letting go of your business. It's kind of you're not being productive or stuff like that. So this is one of the biggest problems. And to answer your question, what is the myth? I think that people are like Tim said, people are going to work less. Yes, that's the myth. But one myth is that like I'm going to wake up whenever I want. So that will not happen. You actually wake up way earlier and try to get everything else done as much as possible. So you can have the free time. One thing that I always valued more than ass in the chair time in the classical office setting was the results. So whenever I was working on any project, I was like, what is the goal that we need to achieve by what date? And then the whoever is hiring me shouldn't care how much I actually was working. If we have a clear idea of what we want to achieve in what amount of time, if we agree on the target and on the price and everything, then that person shouldn't care if I'm working 4 hours or 40, and as long as they are getting what they are paying for. So there's a lot of place for manipulation within this type of approaches. But if you're working with somebody that you trust and you had a relationship for a long time, that this shouldn't be a problem. And then like stuff like work and travel come into play, where like you could be on a plane or airport or in a hotel that doesn't have a Wi-Fi. Those people need to know that you will make up for lost time and you will actually deliver by the day that you agreed to.
Yeah. Awesome. Kiran, what's your experience with this?
I mean, like, I'd say there is maybe sort of a myth with remote working that remote working means work from bed. And like, I mean, it's one of those where like the most important thing that we've discussed quite a lot is you need to have like things like work, like you need to compartmentalize, right? You need to have a space where you can sit down and you can just do work. And that's really important, right? You need to be in the mode where you can just do work. Everything's focused on work. People need to know that you're working. I feel like that's one thing that's quite important, right? You need to have like the right space. You can't just work from your bed because you've worked from your bed and you're just woken up. Like it's not good for your mental state. You won't be productive. And I feel like that's one thing which is like people might not realize when they're doing like remote working for the first time.
Yeah, that was me, basically. When I started, I would just sit in my bed. I would open my laptop and start the meeting. There you go. And soon I realized that why I wasn't able to differentiate whether I'm working and or I'm not working is just because I'm working from bed. There is no physical space that I can relate to that relates to work only.
Exactly. And like I feel like even though you're not physically commuting to work, you need to have like a morning like routine ritual, right? You still need to get up, have your coffee, have your breakfast, and I mean obviously brush your teeth, go to work, and like you need like just like you need to have that very like you need to have that like nailed down. You need to do it properly every single day and make sure that you're in the right state of mind.
So all the people who are listening to us, please have a strict routine and stick to it. And let's ask some more questions to you guys. So someone has requested, DM'd me actually this question. And there you go. So what is this? Things about remote work that people don't pay attention to enough. I think you might have touched it, but again.
I think one of the things that people don't pay attention enough is, I think, mental health. And I think that it touches a little bit on the psychological safety thing I was talking about. You now having to be more mindful about your mental health as a employee and as a leader. If you're leading a team, you have to be more mindful about your people's mental health, because when your work and your home life becomes blurred, or even if it's integrated, if you aren't as an individual good at compartmentalizing and kind of creating your own new routines, it's going to become psychologically draining, and it's going to affect someone's work performance, right? When in the start of the transition. So I think a lot of companies may not have a lot of patience sometimes, right? They're going to be like, why aren't our people working? Like, what's going on? Like, what are all these reports? So you need to have organizations who are really patient, who are understanding, especially given COVID-19, and who have a remote hero on staff maybe that is able to consult with them as well as their employees on what can they do to be more mindful about their mental health. And in addition, there are apps that you can provide to your employees for this, right? That will serve as a health benefit if you have a remote team.
Okay, so we have some numbers that support the stats. We lose almost 11 million working days in UK for the mental health issues that employees have, and that has surged to 83%.
Wow.
Because of COVID virus situation that we are in. And there's one more question that has popped up. Do you think COVID-19 has now become the catalyst for remote work?
Well, yeah, to a certain degree, it had to. So, of course, people are working remotely because, it was just kind of forced. And I promised to a friend of mine today that I'm going to print out hashtag COVID-19. I told you so, working remotely, because for years I've been talking about advantages of working remotely and kind of having more relaxed approach to where your team is. And one of the posts I read a couple of days ago from a friend of mine on LinkedIn, she said that if there are companies that have multiple offices, like one office is in let's say Stockholm, one in London, and then they have multiple offices, multiple locations, but they are specifically not hiring remote developers or remote designers. They want them on site. But if you have a company that is redistributed in multiple locations, why do you care if one of your people is somewhere else, right? And now they came into a situation where they have no choice, and everybody's working from home. And maybe, and I hope that some of the companies will realize how many great people they missed on to hire because they were strong against remote working or flexible working, and they missed out on some great people that could have as a part of their company because they were so frigid on their own backward ways, I want to say. And it's just, I hope it will change, and I hope it will change soon.
Awesome. There are a few more questions that people are firing up over here in the Q&A section.
Great.
I don't know if you guys can see it.
Read them
Yes.
out.
It will be quite helpful if you want to answer some of these. So, what is the next step for remote heroes? To Tom.
What is the question? What is the next step for remote heroes?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, as well, I have time. I'm not going anywhere. So next step is to record free webinars for companies. So kind of be the virtual remote hero companies need and deserve. So record those, put them up online so people have access to them.
Yeah.
And that is the next step. And then hopefully we are writing an ebook. That will be also helping with culture. There are a lot of resources already written online, so we are not reinventing the wheel here. But we want to create webinars that people can watch and then share and then come back to if they need more help or whatever.
Awesome. I have some more questions coming up. Yeah. So this one is, what are your favorite Slack plugins? Since that's the common tool that you all like, I would want everyone to answer one plugin. Be ready.
Oh, so I have one, Zapier.
You
You got it all.
can't go Zapier. That's too easy. Come on.
Yeah.
What? No, it's really, I use it though.
Or
I use
I
Zero.
know, but everybody uses Zapier. Like gives.
Really? I didn't know everyone uses.
Yeah.
Oh, y'all use Zapier? Oh wow.
Mhm.
We use it for design. Yeah, we use it for design.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Zapier is really useful. There was one great bot that was pulled out. I don't know why it doesn't work anymore, but now I'm trying to find a replacement for it, where basically you could type in like, "Hey, I want a meeting with Supriya, Tim, and Kiran," and then they would crawl through all of your calendars and then propose time that would work for everybody.
Yeah.
So that was a great bot. It doesn't work anymore. So I'm trying to find something like that. If somebody knows some tool like that, please let me know. But for now, there's one.
Check out X.AI. I think you might like X.AI.
Okay. Does it integrate with Slack and with everybody's?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I'm
it
gonna-
does. It does.
So,
I guess outside of Zapier, Zeppelin. Zeppelin. Is
Zeppelin.
Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Zeppelin.
Zeppelin's pretty good.
Yeah, Zeppelin
Yeah.
for design is awesome. Yeah, it's a whole different thing from Zapier.
Yeah. Tom knows what that is. Yeah. To be honest.
Kiran, are you thinking of the tools or plugins?
Yeah, I mean, like, I might do what Tom did earlier when he said WhatsApp and say Google Drive because it's the most commonly used plugin. The most that's the thing, right? There's a lot of plugins, but you keep using the same plugins over and over again. And so, I mean, I really recommend the Google Drive plugins because sometimes, like, little things like having to open up a new tab are really annoying.
Yeah.
And use the amount of time that you save just kind of adds up. So, I mean, in general, you don't really need to get extravagant plugins. Get plugins which simplify really menial tasks.
Awesome. I have some more questions coming up over here. People are just firing questions. I love the energy. Will the webinars be tailored to different industry problems?
Not sure they will be tailored to actual industry, but more to specific problems that some people have, and they can be shared across these industries. So we are currently trying to get more questions and more specific problems for different industries. So whoever asks a question, if they can reach out, send us email or tweet or whatever, and tell us what are their specific problems, there we're going to try to address those in webinars. And then if some specific company has specific issues that are you can't cover with a webinar, then I would be more than happy to help them or find somebody who can help them specifically.
Awesome. And then we have one more question. Blah, blah, blah. When is the next seminar?
Next week. So probably next Tuesday or Wednesday, but we're going to announce it by Friday this week.
Cool. How can we as viewers of the webinar help remote heroes and the remote culture movement?
Great question. Thank you to whoever asked that question. There's a link on remoteheroes.org. There's a link called Become a Hero. Sign up there or reach out to me directly, or just send your email or whatever. Just say, hey, I want to help. We are accepting anybody's helping hand. If you want to write an article, great. If you want to help us record something, awesome. If you have resources that you want to share, you wrote something or you did something before and you want to make it available for everybody, we're going to include it in our resources page. So just please send whatever you have and join us.
Oh, I have one more great question just now from WhatsApp. Somebody has asked this, and this is, okay, how would you differentiate between Trello, Jira, Asana, and Monday.com, basically?
I want to let Tim or Kiran address this. I just feel like I'm talking a little bit.
Kiran?
I mean, like, I feel like a mistake that you can make is spend too much time like looking at like various platforms going, we could use that, we could use this. I mean, you're wasting time. I'd say try doing a project in one tool, and if you felt that was really bad, then maybe try a different tool. I feel like jumping in is probably the best answer here.
Yeah, I would just say that agree with Kiran, and just on top of that, start with something that is free and easy to grasp, and then build on top of that. I'm not 100% sure, but I think Monday is not free, and then Trello has a free package, so you can start with Trello, see if it works. Trello is just a Kanban board. It's like much less flexible than some of the other tools. But if you have a simple project and a small team, it could work for you. But if it's a much bigger organization, then you might need a more specialized tool.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like literally, if you have a team of 2, you could use a spreadsheet.
or paper from Dropbox.
Yeah, that's cool. And Tim, what's your take on this?
I align with Kiran and Tom. Are small.
Awesome. Okay.
Big leaps.
So again, there's another comparison that has come: Zoom, House Party, or Google Hangout.
Google Hangouts, because it's been way more reliable.
I think Kevin is gonna differentiate on that.
I use Whereby. I swear by Whereby for now. So
yeah, I'm leaning towards Whereby. I mean, actually, House Party might be a good business tool. I haven't tried to use it as a business tool. I lean against Google Hangouts because I've had quite a lot of latency problems with Google Hangouts personally.
Okay.
Whereby it was called Appear In before, so and then they rebranded into Whereby. It's a dumb name, to be honest, but it works. It just works.
Okay, and then I have got one more question, and it's a really awesome question. What's something that you use that you think not a lot of people know about? It's like a less known tool that you use and you really swear by that tool.
That not a lot of people know about?
They don't know about.
Okay,
does that have to be a remote tool?
It could be any tool. It doesn't have to be a remote tool. I give you that.
Okay, non-project for icons.
Non-project.
Non-project.
I haven't used it.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Now
give you
project.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's quite good. That's quite good.
It's really cool.
Cool.
And also for stock images, if you're ever like producing a publication, Unsplash is also quite good.
Okay.
I use a tool called draw.io. It's
I love that.
yeah, it's a great online tool, like online
Yeah.
drawing board for flowcharts and like stuff like that, where you can create certain stuff like very simple and create like simple objects. It's a nice replacement for what there was a Windows tool that was similar to that back before, but this is a nice replacement for that. If you want to create a flowchart or an organizational chart or something like that, it's very easy. It basically connects to all of the platforms, or you can save it as an image, and it just works with everything. So it's a nice tool.
I actually like one which I'll bring up right now, which I think is really important, especially given the time, is like low code tools. So what a lot of businesses are going to find is that like what they're trying to like do like can't be made remote really easily with existing tools, so they might need to literally build the tool themselves to do something really specific, right? To like log a specific kind of entry and kind of like do maybe some specialist accounts, whatever. And if you get a low code tool, if you don't know what low code is, low code literally makes coding really easy. I mean, like you can't build a proper app, but it does what you're trying to do. So like I know my dad, he does quite a lot of process outsourcing, financial stuff. He's using QuickBase quite a lot. Like so some other tools, like I heard Appian is quite good. And I mean, I feel for like not so much me, but for maybe businesses which are like tuned into the show right now, I feel like low code tools would be really good.
So Daniel McLee has asked, do you have an opinion on Notion?
Oh, sweet. Daniel's my boy, actually.
Ooh.
Notion, the app Notion.
Yeah.
Right. I tried it once a long time ago. But I don't have an opinion for it. I think it's kind of marketing and branding, and they are already kind of predicted to be $1 billion business, which is kind of crazy. I don't have an opinion on it though. I actually am not really into this unified workspace theme. I'm into a integrated workspace. So how on Gmail, you see Gmail also has like your calendar, and they're trying to like kind of create a dashboard within your Gmail, so you have easy access to all the other tools or integrations that you want to add. But I'm not really into this, use an all-in-one workspace and have your documents and your spreadsheet all together. That kind of feels weird to me.
I mean, like what I've heard is Notion's really good if you understand the direction of what you're trying to do. So if you already agreed on how you like what kind of content you want to deliver for your company, and you're basically building a wiki, then maybe Notion would be really good. It's really funny because there's a firm which like that we're collaborating with, fintech firm, and they basically gave us access to like a Notion wiki for documentation for their APIs. And I was talking to this guy on the phone. I was like, dude, I really like your documentation. The way you've organized it is so nice. He's like, oh, thank you, man. And I just realized all they did was they just did it with Notion, nothing special or anything like that. I was like, this is quite a compelling tool.
Yeah, it makes your documents look pretty, but it seems really weird. You can also do databases in there. It seems like I think it's one of those products where it's a one size fits all product. When I just don't think that you should be mixing your notes, your docs, your knowledge base, your task and projects, and your databases in the same tool. It just doesn't make sense.
Just because it can doesn't mean you should use it for that, basically.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Cool. And then we have last question that we'll be taking, being conscious of everyone's time. What is the futuristic vision of Remote Heroes?
The futuristic vision. Well, I would love to be living in a future where more companies are embracing remote work. It means it will drive down prices of a lot of services from companies that are hiring expensive offices. There will be much more people happier, much more people spending time with their friends and family, traveling, doing all the cool stuff that we want to do. So I think the futuristic version is I'm going to let I'll let Team Mr. Future of Work answer this in more detail, but I think the future will be remote to a certain degree, much more than it was last year. And if we help to be just a little bit part of that and happen to push people and companies in that direction, I'm going to be happy.
I mean, like adding to that, I feel like remote hero might be sort of like a job discipline, because you're going to see like there's a lot of needs which are like coming up in like tons of really big like tech companies. Like one, like somebody at Stripe was saying, we need intro concierge because people don't know who to talk to within their companies. And like remote hero kind of like comes into that same thing. Not so much linking people together, but like providing the environment for them to collaborate together. And I feel like that's going to be really important in an environment where everything's entirely digital. You can't just go, okay, like speak to that guy, he's on the next floor. I just go up the stairs, he'll be there, like whatever. Like it's like it's a very different environment. So that's one thing I feel. And extending on from like Tom's point about like no commuting, whatever, like I feel like the office is going to be a very different environment, right? It's going to be an environment where like you go in to meet people. I mean, probably not shake hands, do the foot thing. Yeah, and like maybe do some training, whatever. It's gonna be like a very different environment. I mean, that's another thing I see as well.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting. To Kiran and Tom's point, I'm interested. I don't think we know exactly what it's gonna look like, but I think it's gonna be a mix. I think it's gonna be flexible, right? I want to say flexible, right? Because I think for the last 40 years, people have been forced to have to go into work and stay there as if they're caged animals. Now they're realizing that it's no better being at home and having to be with your husband and your kids. It's kind of chaotic as well. So I think there's an in-between there, right? Between fully remote and always having to be on site, which is just people want flexibility, right? So I still do think that Starbucks is going to exist. I still think, even though WeWork's business has been really affected due to everything going on, I still think it's going to exist. But more important, I think organizations are going to realize, well, we don't need to have these huge campuses, right? Like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, they have buildings everywhere for their employees, right? I think they're going to realize, well, maybe we can cut down on those operational expenses to keep those lights on, and find an in between, right? Maybe like smaller office settings, right? But it's really just so people can maybe go pick up some stuff, or to hang out, like Kiran said, or to do training. I don't know what we're gonna make use of the real estate, right? I think that's still up in the air. But like, I mean, if we're looking at any of the trends right now, restaurants are now pushed to go into delivery, right? Delivery services. So maybe businesses can use any of the assets that they buy as just an opportunity, a place for their people to come hang out, spend some time, like co-working spaces, to be honest with you. So that might, and maybe they can open that up to not only their employees, but also their partners, freelancers, and maybe people who want to pay for it. So I don't know. I think we're going to see a new norm, but it's going to be flexible. It's not just going to be fully remote, and it's not just going to be on-site work.
Okay.
We'll see that.
So thank you everyone for joining us. If you have more questions, if you have more queries, feel free to email it on Remote Heroes or direct to one of us, add us on LinkedIn, and we take it from there. You have taken the first step to conquer remote working, and we want to see more of your questions, more of you joining us, and conquer the world of working remotely or on site. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was great having you here, and thanks for taking the time, especially late in UK. And I know it's midday for you, Tim. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care, guys.
Cool.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.